Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Shakir bin Amir Anwar, and I want to present about the introduction. So the introduction of this project is we have given the task to find a machine in UTHM lab, and the machine must at least has 3 process. We must complete the handbook and WC program for each operational process. The C code must have 2 array, 3 function, and 3 loop to complete it. So the objective of this project is to find 3 process for the machine, to find the parameter for the machine, and to make a C code for each process. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Ahmaduddin bin Zafaruddin. My matrix number is CD20086. Okay, I will continue this presentation with theory about lathe machine. Lathe machine is a machine tool that use a tool which pass across the workpiece and can be driven deep into it to remove unwanted material from a spinning workpiece in the form of chips. In general, the feed movement of the tool is the lathe machine form, and its principal motion is the rotation movement of the workpiece, whether it is made of wool, steel, aluminium, or stainless steel. They have some of parts that we have to know, such as a headstock, chuck, carriage, feed shaft, and others. If we look in this slide, the name of part and his function. Okay, first is headstock. Headstock is on the left end of the bed. There is a headstock. The headstock primary role is to transmit power to various sections of the lathe. Second is chuck, to hold a workpiece, especially one that is short in length but large in diameter. Thirdly is tool post. Tool post is function is to use to hold various cutting tool holders. Next is component rest. In its various setting, it supports the tool post and cutting tool. Other than that is tail stock, to support the other end of the work when being machined, to use a tool to conduct operations such as drilling, reaming, tapping, and other similar tasks. Next is bed. The bed of the lathe machine serves as the foundation for all of the lathe machine other components. The bed is supported by large box section columns, construct of cast iron or nickel cast iron only. Next is lathe screw. The screw is used mostly in the case when the threading operation is to be performed. Okay, otherwise is carriage. Carriage is function during operation. The carriage primary duty is to support, guide, and feed the tools against the work. Finally is feed shaft. Feed shaft is function is used mostly in the case when the threading operation is to perform on the lathe. There is some the part and its function that we have to know and learn. Next we go to the process, type of process. The process that include in our report and presentation is facing process, turning process, and finishing process. Facing process or facing operation. A procedure which the end of the workpiece is machined by a tool to the workpiece rotation. Facing is also the process of removing material from a workpiece end and with a specific tool to produce a flat surface perpendicular to the workpiece. The next process is turning operation or turning process. A method of removing metal from a revolving cylindrical workpiece outside diameter. Turning is also used to reduce the diameter of workpiece, usually to a specific size, and to give the metal a smooth surface. The workpiece is frequently twisted in such a way that neighboring pieces have various diameter. In any case, the turning process needs the use of a turning machine of load, as well as workpiece, fixture, and cutting tool. Following that, turning is frequently used as a secondary process to add or modify features on pieces that were already made using another method. Finally is finishing operation. Finishing is a process that produces a clean surface finish and accurately size the workpiece. The type of surface finish generated can be influenced by factors such as the condition of the cutting tool's bed, the stiffness, and the workpiece. We have to know that the finishing is the last phase in the manufacturing process, and it is used to give aesthetic as well as environmental protection For pieces that must mate or seal, this process will employ to minimize surface roughness beyond the capability of machine techniques. That's all about the three process of lathe machine. We continue with my friend. Thank you.
So next, this is the database one, the parameter for the machine. So we can find this is the rotation per minute of spindle, the material, and the loss per minute for every material. Next is the process, which is we have three process: facing, turning, and finishing for the lathe machine, and the spindle rotation. Also, we what spindle rotation are valid to do the facing, turning, and finishing. So next is spindle rotation and energy consumption. So every 200 every RPM that rotation 200 rotation per minute will be charge energy consumption to 150 watt per hour.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Muhammad Akib Zainul Abidin with Trigonometric CD 200-108, and I'm going to present about pseudocode and flowchart for our project. So in pseudocode, for database, first the program will display all the data, so the user can choose which database they want to use. After the chosen database, there are 4 cases. If the user choose case 1, the user will prompt to for input 1. But if the user choose case 2, they will proceed for input 2. But if they choose case 3, user will be prompt for input 3. And lastly, if they choose the case 4, the user will be go for input 4. Then the program will break and display the output. Next, they will end the program. So in flowchart, the program will display all the database which are database 1, 2, and 3. So the user can choose which database they want to use. In the database, there are 4 cases. If case 1 is read as true, which is the user choose case 1, they will go for input 1 and then the program will break. But if it's read as false, you will skip the case 1 and go for case 2, and then they will read for input 2. But if the case 2 also false, they will skip again and choose case 3 for input 3, but it is also false, then the program will go for case 4, and then it will continue to input 4 and then break. At the end of the program will display all the output and end the program. So next, for the pseudocode for production. So in production, the user need to select material between wood, steel, aluminum, and stainless steel. After the material selection, the user also need to select RPM for selected material, which are between 200, 400, 600, and 800 RPM. Next step is the user must enter diameter to cut the material. If the user choose RPM equals to 200, the program will continue to process facing, turning, and finishing. But if the user choose RPM 400 or 600 RPM, the program will continue process facing and turning. Lastly, if the user choose RPM equals to 800, and the program only continue to process facing. After the process, the program will start to calculate time process for the production and calculate energy use for this project. Next, the program will display time taken and also display energy consumption for this project. So at the end, after the program has finished, it will break and end the program. So in flowchart, we start with select material, which are wood, steel, aluminum, and stainless steel. If wood is read as true, it will go for select RPM, but it is not, it will go for steel. If steel is read as true, it will continue to select RPM, but it also false, it will skip again and go for aluminum, and if also false, lastly it will go for stainless steel. So after the selected material is chosen, they will go to select RPM, which are 200, 400, 600 and 800 RPM. If 200 is if the user input 200, and then it will read as true, and it will skip all the RPM and go for select diameter. But if it's false, it will go for 400, and if the 400 is equals to true, it will go for select diameter. But it's not, it will skip again and go for 600 RPM, and if false again, it also go for the last one, which is 800 RPM. Then after the selected RPM, the program will go for the select diameter, which is the user must input the diameter to cut the material. And with certain RPM, there are 3 types of process, which are pressing, turning and finishing. So after the process, the program will calculate all the time taken and energy used, and then the program will display the time and energy consumption that have been used for this project. And at the end, the program will break and end the program.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Amirul Harid, and I will present the C code. So for the input data declaration, as we can see the line 19 to 28, we use the variable which is diameter loss rate, diameter workpiece, time, diameter, RPM, material removal rate, minutes, hours and energy. Next, for array data, we use the function of array. The input data array for database 1 is material, spindle RPM and diameter loss per minute. For database 2, we store the process that the specific RPM can proceed, which is facing, turning and finishing. For database 3, we store the energy consumption for the process of the machine. Next, for the loop for material, we use the while and if function. The input will be the material selection, the RPM and the diameter to cut. The program will show the time of the process and the energy consumption for the process of the machine. That's all for our C code.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Alif Ikram bin Azmi Tarmizi. My metric number is AD190097. So for our group project, I will be presenting the result. So this result is based on the C code that we have developed. We have select 4 different material to be used as our workpiece. So the first material is wood. As you can see here, the first item to be displayed in the output is our database. So there are 3 databases as you can see here. So the user must refer to this database in order to make their selection. So first, the output will ask you to enter the material that you use, in this case which is wood. So the user must enter option 0, and then the user must also enter their desired RPM in order to do their process. So in this case is 200 RPM, while the diameter to be cut is 4 mm. So based on these 2 information, the program will calculate the time taken for the process to finish and the energy consumption for the process. So in this case, the time taken is 1 minute and the energy consumption is 2 watt. So we move on to our next material, which is steel. So same as the previous output, the first one to be displayed is the database, and then the user must choose option number 1 for steel. So the RPM used here is 200 and the diameter to be cut is 4 mm. Why we use the RPM, the same RPM and same diameter? This is because we want to compare between these 3 materials. So which one has which is the difference of it, which is the time process or the energy consumption. So in this case, the steel, for steel, the time taken for the process to finish is 4 minutes and the energy consumption is 8 watt. And then for next material, which is aluminium. So in the case of aluminium, the time taken for the process to finish is 2 minutes and the energy consumption is 4 watt. So as we can see here, as we use similar RPM and similar diameter, so there are differences in the time taken for the process to finish and the energy consumption for the process. So we move on to our final workpiece, which is stainless steel. So in the if the user want to use stainless steel, the user must enter option number 3, which is the command for the stainless steel, and then the RPM, which is the same, which is 200 RPM, and the diameter to be cut is also the same, which is 4 mm. So we can see here the time taken for the process to finish for material stainless steel is 4 minutes and the energy consumption for this process is 8 watt. So that's all that I can conclude here. Thank you.
So next is the conclusion of the project. So in conclusion, the objective of this project has been achieved. That will the objective that we presented earlier, and all has been achieved. And by doing this project, we got to learn about the coding program from the project. We're able to understand the function of the coding, and by using the apps dev C++, and it was easy and able to solve any problem that involve coding with an system. So next is the reference. So we actually use 5 more reference, but this is some of that. One is lecture note that we got from lecturer, and Science Direct we use Wikipedia, and to find about the lathe machine and the parameter for the machine. Thank you.